This is the Simpit. I'm your host, Sean Cole, and today's show is about that never-ending quest for speed. We might have the perfect setup. We might have the perfect rig with wheel and monitors and computers. We might have everything going in our favor, but is that enough for us to win the race? Is that enough for us to beat a Gregor Hutu or an Atze Kerkhof? When I talked to Atze Kerkhof in my interviews, he mentioned several times the amount of mental preparation that he puts into sim racing. In fact, he hired himself a coach, Fabio Martins, to teach him the DeRose method, a way of bringing your physical body and mind together to get the most out of an athlete, to get their top performance, and that's some of the things that he does to be a top sim racer. Before I let you go, anybody you want to thank out there?
I'd like to thank Fabio Martins from the DeRose method. He's the guy who pulled me through all the hard parts of preparing for everything. He's the guy who's he formed me mentally, he trained me great. Also Ricardo Suarez, also part of the DeRose method, my sponsor.
After those interviews, I actually started talking with Fabio. We talked a bit about the DeRose method, talked about him working with Atze, talked about him working with other sim racers and real life racers. And a bell went off in my head. Andreas, Project Sim Racer. Wouldn't this be a perfect person to benefit from some mental coaching to get him on that climb from rookie to racing and beating a Gregor Hutu or an Atze Kerkhof? So I inquired about hiring Fabio to work with him directly and teach him the DeRose method and see if it would help him in his climb. Well, Fabio did a little turn on me and said, well, I want to work with both of you. And all of a sudden it was put upon me. Do I want to be better? Can I get more out of myself? And honestly, I've gotten to a point in my sim racing world where I've kind of gotten a little complacent, I think. I've been doing it a long time. I'm happy with a certain level of success. And I think I kind of stopped trying as hard as I used to when I was a little more competitive. Here I am in the truck, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to go after the C-Class Truck Series, and I'm going to see how I do. My ranking is in Division 3. I'd like to say I want to be the champion. That's a lofty goal, champion of Division 3. I don't think I can get there, but I'd like to see if I can get in the top 20, maybe even into the top 10, but it's going to take a lot of work, and you're going to be able to see me do it each week in 2 different. So we went ahead and set it up, and next thing you know, we are having our first session with Fabio Martins and working with the DeRose method to see what me and Andreas could get out of our mental training, bringing that physical body and mind together to get peak performance out of an athlete. Now let's talk about our first session with the DeRose method. It was done via Skype, with me here in the studio, Andreas at his home, and due to a slight scheduling problem, Fabio would be conducting the first session from home, but in the future and normally he works from the Tribeca School in New York. First things first, I was going to need a lot of space and I had to do a little cleaning up. And then we started just laying on the floor and doing some basic breathing exercises, learning how to fully take in a full breath of air, filling our lungs, getting the maximum amount of oxygen into our blood and into our brain.
We divide up your breathing into 4 different stages. Inhaling, keeping your lungs full, exhaling, and keeping your lungs empty.
Then we moved on to some forced breathing exercises, really putting emphasis on your abdomen, forcing the air in and out of your lungs, a big part of bringing in a full breath of air.
Good, Sean. Try. You can relax your face. You don't need to scrunch your face. Good.
Once we were starting to get an idea of what a full breath of air was like, it was on to the next phase of our first class. We started to do what Fabio would refer to as techniques that would start to test our flexibility, but even more importantly, push our strength and balance. In some of the early techniques, we would take something that seemed so simple, just stand there with one leg up and hold it with your eyes closed. Simple enough, right? Well, for me, it wasn't that easy. It took total concentration to even begin to do this. And from there, even this tested my muscles as I made adjustments to attempt to hold me in place. Some of the techniques were easy or close to obtainable, but at other times, they were way beyond my ability. But just making attempts was still pushing me to my limits.
If touching your ankle is easy, try to touch the floor. If touching the floor is easy, try to place your whole hand on the floor.
We went through a series of techniques, and each one would continue in the same style. Each position, again, testing your balance, your strength, and forcing you to clear your mind. Relax and be sensitive to your body and what it needs. After what was actually a very tough workout, we moved on to our assimilation technique. Now this is very interesting. We just came from this point of being worked out, feeling a little heated, a little pumped up, to laying on the floor and completely letting all the pressure and stress be removed from your body. Move around, get so comfortable that you don't feel anything. And in these moments, as Fabio started taking us through the process, you would start to go from being overheated to completely feeling cool, almost cold, and getting to the point where you felt nothing, and your mind was the only thing that was completely aware of everything you were hearing and everything going on. We actually went through a process of going through a perfect lap in our favorite car and imagining every turn, every braking zone, getting it to that level of detail like you were actually in the car. He then sped us up and we did it twice as fast, hitting all of our marks, doing the perfect lap twice as fast.
As you complete this slow motion lap perfectly, precisely, you can allow yourself to speed up time. I want you to imagine another lap, but this time 2 times quicker than an F1 car could drive it. Increasing the speed tremendously makes things even more interesting.
Now this might seem silly, this might seem weird, but can you imagine running the perfect lap twice as fast and being there in the moment at all times? And that was a little bit of what this process was like. And then we were at the end of the class. And at this point, I felt like I had been at a workout. I was full of endorphins, but I had been worked out. I had nothing left physically, but I definitely felt stimulated. I definitely felt to that point where I was a little more aware of everything going on. And that was the end of our first session. Now coming off of that, did I drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak? Did I really believe in what we were doing? I don't know yet. I mean, I see the processes. These are very similar techniques that you'll find all over the world, all over the internet, all over the bookstore if you look for them. There are different theories on different techniques, different ways, different approaches. They all have similarities and they all have unique things, but this one felt very tailored for someone like me, someone like Andreas, someone looking to get more speed out of the car. But what I really felt was very self-conscious. This was the moment that I actually felt a little overweight, a little out of shape, a little old in my case. And that didn't make me feel very good. That didn't help in my learning process or feeling super successful coming off of the first session. But then we did move on to the next session, where we would kind of start off very similar way, working very quickly on some breathing, but moving much quicker onto those techniques that would test our strength, our balance, our concentration. And I started to realize that breathing that we had put so much effort into, it became critical. When you're trying to do some of these positions, some of these techniques, breathing allows you to be more flexible. Breathing allows you to let those muscles not feel so tense. Breathing allows you to be more sensitive to what's going on and push your boundaries a little bit more.
The most important thing here is to breathe. Inhale and exhale slowly, deeply.
And that's something that I started to learn in our second session as we moved through the techniques. Once we are well worked out, in fact, I want to talk about one position we did, and this is something you can do for sure whether you're practicing the rows or doing your own thing. We went in that push-up position, and he said in the Gran Turismo Academy, they were asking the drivers to hold 5 minutes. And right now, if you want to just copy that position, see what you can do. It took a lot of concentration from me to really go from that 1 to 2 minute mark, and that was about as far as we pushed it in the second episode or second session. And after what was even a tougher workout, we again moved into our assimilation technique. Again, getting from that point of being worked out, feeling fully pumped up, to laying down, having all the stress and all of the pressure removed from your body so that your mind can absorb everything going on. There are slight differences to the assimilation process, but once we are done, we were back to normal again, and again, I had that feeling of having worked out, being very stimulated, full of energy, maybe not feeling so strong because I had been through a heavy workout. Again, I was still self-conscious. I didn't feel that full strength, didn't feel that full fitness, but I did notice that this time around, I had a little more concentration. I had a little bit more focus throughout the entire process, and that was going to be very important moving forward. Going into the third session, I can tell you, I still didn't really know how it all came together. I certainly had a certain amount of skepticism still going on, but I will say that I'd been thoroughly enjoying the classes. I still felt out of shape, and I thought that was definitely a hindrance in me getting the most out of what we were doing. But we moved into that third session, and it basically started off with the same thing. Let's work on our breathing, then let's move into some of these techniques. Each time, this was the third session, there were a few repetitive ones, and then there were always new ones being added that would test different muscles, different skill sets. Again, always focusing on balance, concentration, breathing, testing your flexibility and your strength, your core, making sure that you are aware of everything. And this is where I maybe had my first aha moment. And I'm going to call this the Karate Kid wax on, wax off moment. But here I am in the middle of the third session, and all of a sudden I realized, wow, if I just tried a little harder, it was like I had some moment where my brain got over that final hurdle, and when I was bending over, I was just allowing my head and everything to be that much more into it. It is so hard for me to explain what really went on, but all I can think of is in the Karate Kid when he was questioning wax on, wax off with Miyagi, and all of a sudden Miyagi went to punch him, and wax on, wax off was the defense.
The deal here.
So?
So you're supposed to teach and I'm supposed to learn, remember? For 4 days I've been busting my ass. I haven't learned a goddamn thing.
You learned plenty.
I learned plenty. I learned how to sand your decks, maybe. I wax your car.
Now show me wax on, wax off.
Wax on, wax off.
Wax on, wax off. Hey, wax on, hot. Wax off, hot. Concentrate. Look at my eye. That!
And I don't know what the DeRose method is still getting at for me, but I can tell you, this was the moment that I started to really feel, wow, if I can really clear my mind, I can get that much more out of my body, be that much more aware of my balance, my concentration, and even what muscles need to be focused on in order to let me to do some of these techniques. We finished with those exercises. We moved into an assimilation technique that was, again, a little bit different. This time, instead of focusing so much on driving, it was focusing on the inner self, focusing on imagining the perfect self, and really knowing what it's like to expect the most and be the most perfect version of yourself. And this is where it again starts to all come together. All of a sudden we're doing the assimilation techniques. I'm sitting there completely stress-free, completely letting my body be nothing as my brain absorbs everything. And I thought back to those moments of balance. And I thought back to that moment when I was just trying to, with my eyes closed, do something, and how concentration and having that total sensorial awareness and having that peaked is so critical. And now I just want to make the one leap from these moments laying on the floor, from being in the middle of one of these technique positions, that moment that I'm in the cockpit and being sensitive to everything about the car, being sensitive to maybe 100 RPM difference in the motor, being sensitive to a little bit of tire wear or exactly what the car is doing, being sensitive to what am I doing as a driver, keeping that brain clear. So this is about where I want to finish up this episode. It was the end of the third session. I had just started to have an aha moment, but I don't know if I have yet seen the results in action on the track, but finishing that third session, I felt like I think I know where things are going to start going. It was also at the end of that third session that I made the personal realization that becoming unfit was robbing me of being at peak performance. Now, sim racing doesn't require being a super athlete, but not being fit definitely prevents you from being at peak performance. There is no doubt in my mind that regardless of what you're doing in life, being fit plays a huge role in it. And I needed to be doing these practices more than once a week with Fabio. I needed to be playing through these positions, through these techniques, through these assimilation techniques, doing them on my own 5, 7 days a week if I can. And doing that is going to take me to a whole nother level, not just on the track, not just as a sim racer, but as a soccer player, but as an employee, as a broadcaster, as whatever it is you do in life. I'm already starting to see how having that focus and concentration will affect other things in life. Now moving forward, I'm going to cover the next 3 sessions of these classes. I headed into them with a completely different enthusiasm than I did with the first 3. I'm also going to talk about how it started to affect things in my life, how it started to affect me as a sim racer, and that's what's most important. I hope you've enjoyed this show. Now, if you're thinking of doing something like this, I again want to mention there are a lot of different techniques, a lot of different practices all over the internet, all over your bookstore. You can hire a coach, you can do it yourself, you can just follow along with various different videos. What you're getting here from Fabio is a particular version of all of this combined and designed for someone like me, someone like Atze Kerkhof, and maybe that could be an advantage to you. But I don't think you have to go running out to get the point of what we're doing here. And this is the kind of stuff that you can better yourself, you can better your focus by doing things similar to these practices alone, at home, and tailored for your own needs. The bottom line is this. The difference between me and a Gregor Hutu can be skills, but a lot of it can be that mental preparation, that ability to focus, that ability to block out everything else and have that sensorial awareness that allows him to drive perfectly lap after lap. I hope you've enjoyed this show. I know it's a little bit different. I know it's not what you expected to hear, but maybe it just makes you think a little bit that you can get a little bit more out of yourself as well. This is the Simpit. I'm Shaun Cole, and I'll see you on the track.